And a lot of people believe that eggs are the perfect food, and then if you want to avoid the cholesterol, you eat the egg whites. They believe that they're good for us. Obviously, I know what you believe, but why are they bad? And are they just another animal product, or are they specifically bad? And what does the general science show?
Well, egg whites, there's a lot of protein, as you know. So animal proteins in general all are about the same, slight differences, but they're far different from the proteins of plants, right? So when I speak of animal protein, I'm thinking of egg whites as well. Because if in fact, egg protein is considered to be one of the highest quality proteins, if you use that metric that I briefly discussed. And it's the same as casein, egg protein, obviously eggs and chickens, and casein in milk and meat and animals. So to talk very specifically about what's the difference in egg protein and egg yolk, if you will, my judgment on that, and I liked eggs, by the way, we had chickens as well, but my judgment on that is just looking at the average data that have accumulated over time. And there is some evidence that I know has been published, I don't know what's been reported, that egg themselves is associated with more colon cancer. And there's arguments being made that's somewhat impressive. So I mean, the whole idea of not eating animal protein when we don't need it, we don't need any, we can survive really well. In fact, survive a lot better, not having any. So I'll go I'm not trying to be a purist, to be honest about it. I'm just simply saying I don't even like the word diet. I like the word nutrition, the whole food nutrition. And all I'm saying is that everything that I see, like those lines, those regression lines, and everything else we do, it's all bad. It starts out from the day zero. And, you may not see these results, these differences right away. And I know too that some people can, they can manage a little bit of doing the wrong thing if for good long life. That happens. We're talking about statistics. But, I want to be in the crowd where there's a 99% chance that, I'm right. Then living in a crowd where, I'm only half, let's say, or 50-50. So the data for me from so many different directions is so persuasive that I wouldn't do anything different. Right. And now we go with the environmental thing. That's another issue, really big issue. That the environment, that's probably the biggest of all. We got some serious problems. And 80%, between 70 to 80% of that information or that problem is due to livestock. We're setting up a new program in Dominican Republic right now with our organization. My daughter's the president of this nonprofit where we just got a bunch of land that was actually devastated by deforestation with cattle being raised for the American market. So we will show how that can be changed.
Do you want to give a shout out to the name of that organization that your daughter is running?
Yeah, it's CNS, the Center for Nutrition Studies. You can find out about it. They partnered with another nonprofit in the Dominican Republic, and it's just now getting off the ground.
All right. Great, thank you. So I'm going to have an audience member ask a question. Eileen, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Hello, I'm from New Jersey. Dr. Campbell, thank you very much for speaking up about the COVID vaccine. I had a question about the China study you had where the Chinese people died, not of cancer, of course, but of intestinal obstruction. And that really intrigued me. What is that all about?
I don't know, to be honest about it. That was the designation that the Chinese used to classify causes of death. And so I don't know.
Maybe poisonous food or...
I don't know what it was.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we have got one more question coming from Bex. Bex, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you again, Doctor. We really appreciate all that you do and who you are. Knowing what we know, that it's all for profit, and having your knowledge and your background, do you see a plan? Can you help the next generations take this forward so that perhaps in some of our lifetimes, we will see the end of the subsidies for the junk and the things that are killing us? Thank you.
Yeah, I have a plan. I always have plans. And the question is execution and whether it's going to be done or not. In terms of the information that I'm familiar with, coming all the way from being a farmer to where I am now, I just became so persuaded that whether the animal protein is not a nutrient, I just have to be, it's not serving us good. That's that simple. So if we can just educate people on that for starters, and then also equally importantly, educate people on the value of plants. And know this is important. My Italian friends have learned this and really quite well. That they have actually kind of spanned their whole country. I've been there several times lecturing. And so they go around and tell them all around Italy about this information. They were then taking a group of people at times, putting them into a program called Jumpstart, a word that my oldest son had used. Take a group of people with disease, possibly, let them eat it for 10 days. And most of the people felt great. They saw remarkable changes. And I have two sons who've done that. My oldest son, who wrote the movie Plant Pure Nation, and now he's made another one, Food for Freedom, which just got the Diamond Award, I might say, in the Los Angeles Film Festival. But in any case, one was a filmmaker and doing that kind of thing. And so when they do these the 10-day things like this, they see what others have seen. Dr. Esselstyn's done it on a fairly regular basis, this kind of thing. His son, Rip, has certainly done it, and others, friends of mine. We always see these remarkable changes. And you would think, wow, these are sick people and they feel so good after that. And then they fall off the wagon, and only about 10% of them stay with it. Coming back to my Italian friends, they were aware of this too. So here's what they did. They put people on, a group of people on for 9 days. There was sort of, not too good a health. On 9 days, they felt great. So then they asked them, would you like to do another 15 days? And everyone said yes, because they're feeling good at that time. And so they did it 3 more times. By the time that, 15 days and 9, that's 69 days. At that time, they asked him, would you like to do another 15 days? I mean, they were already there, permanently changed, never going back, which demonstrated a principle of biology, essentially. And that is, we tend to eat to a great extent what we like, obviously. We get used to it. We embellish it with salt, sugar, and fat, which are not necessary, and that just sort of feeds the addiction we have. In this case, these people had gotten to the point, and I think it's around 2 or 3 weeks for most people, maybe longer. People have gotten changed. When you get to that point, you don't want to go back. We just don't want to go back. And so to answer your question, we could get that sort of told, and people adopt it, and also recognize why we were getting the wrong information. That's the other part of the story too. As I say, my oldest son has a film out right now that's really just won the award called Food for Freedom. And that's kind of exciting because what they were doing there, they went back to people who tried it, and then they left them alone and went back 6 months later, something like that, and got from them whether they stayed with it or not, and got some, explanations. So just have to keep plugging away. I wish we could think of something on a grand scale, like, outlawing deforestation or something like that. I don't know. It's tricky business.
Thank you very much for that explanation. So another question, and obviously animal products, we've had this discussion is absolutely, directly correlated with increases in disease. Is there any benefit to this idea, not that it's good for you, but is it less bad for you if your beef is cow fed? That's become very popular. Is there any science that shows that? I'm sorry, grass fed, not cow fed, grass fed. Is there any benefit to grass fed beef as opposed to the standard beef?
No, there isn't. I know that the fellow who started that at the time, he was given a lecture twice. When somebody asked him the China study, he shouted it out to him and said, "Don't read the China study." It tells me a lot. And he's not himself. He was not a scientist. I won't use his name right now, but he's not a scientist. He's a writer for the New York Times. And so that idea sold, pretty well. Grass-fed. We had grass-fed animals ourselves. They weren't feedlot. And the small farm operations in years gone by were mostly grass-fed animals. What changed was the big factory farms, because they're now making thousands of animals in one operation, being fed that. And so, but there's no evidence that argument. The original argument was based on one narrow little idea of omega-3 to omega-6 fats. And he was arguing that animals fed on grass lot, they were better quality meat, if you will, and fat in particular. More omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory. Omega-6 is pro-inflammatory, and you get a better ratio. That sounds like, it's going in the right direction. But they all have the same protein. Set aside the fat question, they all have the same protein. There's no difference. So we need to do a grand experiment to check me out on that, but I think the data are so powerful.
So we have about 2 minutes left, if that, not maybe like 1 minute left. Is there any parting thoughts that you want to leave us with in the next minute or so?
Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic, of course, after spending all these years of at least leaving behind a message that, not just for our own personal health, but for the larger sphere of living, for societies. We got the planet may be at risk, the Earth is at risk. And so much of it relates to just choosing the right food. And the biggest problem we have, I have to say, is probably economics. That is to say, the drug industry, the food industry have a lot of people working for them. And we can't just shift like that. I'm a free market guy. But at least we can have the conversation to offer this information to the public at large so they can have the choice. We got to stop this business of trying to tell them the opposite. So this is a matter of freedom of speech, I would tell you, for sure. And just having the will to tell it like it is with science, with good evidence.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Doctor. We really appreciate your time and your impact is immeasurable. If we can unmute the audience, and I just want to thank you one more time for this.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell from the Netherlands.
Campbell did it his way.